In your lifetime, there will be a re-emergence of nightmares that should have been forgotten back in a remote age undreamed of today. Many believe these are just ancient riddles, wrapped in mystery, inside of an enigma, but there are many clues for those actually seeking the truth behind them.
Control, domination, hunger, and the manufactured right to something stolen. To understand where the Nephilim may be hiding, we have to return our understanding to what they actually are. We have to remember their true definition. And then, in a way, we have to redefine them, because today they are much more complicated than we've been led to believe. This is by design, the zealous war machine of the kingdom of darkness. We've been manipulated and lobotomized into mental and spiritual submission when it comes to the world of cryptids of all types. We simply don't seem to understand them. And when we do more research, often the answers that we find seem to make the matter even more confusing. This is also by design. We've been coaxed and encouraged down this rabbit hole of cryptids since the Garden of Eden, when allegedly Satan, the fallen one, he who makes music upon his footfalls, when the great deceiver masqueraded as a snake of sorts, which is quite a peculiar choice, a reptile, cold-blooded and clearly discernible from man, distinctly animal, and yet it spoke in a tongue that she understood. Satan is the original cryptid. He's a skinwalker, a shapeshifter. And Eve is the first human example of what happens when you follow a cryptid. It ticks God off. But you see, the Prince of Darkness was prepared to make a whole lot of cryptids. Why? Because he can't just create something from nothing like God can, it appears. And he does not have a kingdom. Hell, in my opinion, is not a kingdom. I know I might ruffle a bunch of feathers with that one, but I don't see hell as a kingdom. The notion of Satan ruling hell as his little kingdom with demonic subjects stems more from literature and art and pop culture, Paradise Lost by John Milton or medieval passion plays, Dante's Inferno. These are all little bits and pieces of propaganda used by the church to create a reality that doesn't and has never existed in order to maintain three things: control, domination, and hunger. And if we look at sacred texts and canonical scriptures, particularly in Christianity, they often depict hell as a place of punishment for Satan and his followers, not a domain that he governs. And you guys can look at Revelation 20:10 for that. And I know I'm on an island when it comes to that kind of talk, okay? So I don't need to hear all the comments about how I'm going to hell. Thank you all for telling me. But indeed, Satan has even been called the ruler of the kingdom of the air by Paul. So obviously he doesn't really have a throne to sit on or a place to call home. This is our domain. Heaven is God's, right? And whatever is in between is of no consequence. In my opinion, Satan has been looking for his permanent home ever since his skinwalker phase, his ugly teenager phase, when he had all the acne and he's all zitty and peeing his pants and stuff. I want to paint a different kind of picture for you, though, other than Satan peeing his pants. It's not a bad one, but I'm looking for a different picture. And fair warning, this is not pretty. This is gonna be a rough episode, guys. Like, I really fleshed this one out, and yeah, it's rough. This was not a fun one to research. I'm about to take your minds to a pretty evil and horrible place, because that's what the Nephilim are. Like, we fancify them and stuff with the giant talk and, you know, fairies and all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to show you that the Nephilim are monsters. They're the worst. They are the literal enemy of humanity. There's no good ones. They're bad. They're evil things. So yeah, you can close your eyes if it makes you feel better or see better or whatever, but you are a man and you stand on the lands of your people. Before you, a being of immeasurable horror and power sets fire to the air around you. The ground shakes. He is not God, but he is God-like. And he's an angel. He's one of the 200 that descended with Semyaza. He demands women. Women for his friends who descended with them to breed with. And there's a mission. At first, you're horrified. Among the women taken is your wife. So that super sucks. In exchange, however, these godlike beings leave you with a new ability. You've learned some secrets of agriculture and architecture, and it's really excelling your little tribe to heights that the other tribes are envious of. So you figure, okay, I guess I can get another wife. So you find a new wife and you vow that it will never be like that again. The dark ones aren't going to come back and take your pretty wife again. But this isn't a one-time thing, and before long it becomes apparent that the godlike beings are going to return time and time again for your women. And you are your village elders, you and all your village elders, you hatch a plan to avoid continually losing your wives because it sucks. So you decide some amongst you will be separated for the purpose of satisfying the angels, these holy strangers. A new group of women is created, women who exist to be bred by these fallen ones, these watchers. And the women start out as normal women, but somewhere along the generational trail, they seem to become something more. Some say that they are a type of hybrid themselves, and the Aztecs referred to them as copper-blooded women. Time and time again, the fallen ones came, and time again, these sacrificial women were just simply traded away for more power, technology, and knowledge. It's easy for man to ignore what he does not see with his own eyes, you and me. It's easy for us to forget those types of realities because we've never experienced it. 99% of people don't even believe that ever happened. Anything like that. That's Lord of the Rings talk. That's Harry Potter stuff there. Like, that's stuff that could never possibly happen, right? But exactly what the leaders do is cause us to not believe what we see with our own eyes. These leaders who later became kings and emperors and legends, who were once trading their women away, they just simply shut out what they do not see. Suddenly, trading 50 virgins is of no consequence because it's not your wife, it's not your daughter. Humanity begins to decide who is and is not important. What people do not see is that the women are ruthlessly ripped from their homes, their lives, and their very reality. These women from antiquity. They're subjected to a torment of immeasurable pain and torture. It's an unnatural act akin to that of the darkest of perversions. In other words, it does not work, so the angels forced it to. in ways that are opposite the natures of righteousness, or opposite the laws of righteousness, excuse me. It's against nature. These women were forced to be the incubators for a hybrid species called the Nephilim, who would spill out of the women, perhaps killing her in the process of birth. Or some, such as Alberino, suggest the Nephilim might be born the size of a normal child, but then increase in size at an unnatural pace. Either way, the monster is born. And these small tribes to whom the Watchers appeared, they become cities, and they become kingdoms, and they become empires. The Watchers, in the midst of accepting the ceremonial offerings of women flesh, also accept the lucrative blood of children for a substance known as adrenochrome. These fallen ones teach us religions and beliefs and magic, and they tell us stories about how we came to be, since it has been so long since our ancestors' time. We've forgotten. And for a time, things appeared to go well, man. The Nephilim even assisted mankind. Humanity was tasked with the incredible undertaking of feeding and providing for the Nephilim, these monsters, these mighty human-angel hybrids of just magnificent and enormous stature, ability, and power. And such beings, to me, are called the Nephilim, but you might recognize them as something else. You might recognize them as the word demigod. In this way, Nephilim could be thought of as Hercules or Achilles, Magni or Modi, or Karna and Bhishma, Cthulhu and Yamato Takeru, Shango and Windo, Hiawatha, and even Wonder Woman, Percy Jackson. Nephilim, as is the way of these things, a great spider web of witchcraft and black magic spreads over all within the influence of these beings. They're evil. They are contrary to the ways of their creator, God. But he has allowed them to spread across the earth to test mankind, and their doom is already written on the tapestry of time. And it's just ticking away slowly. We're experiencing that now at a measure that the human type does not even understand. And Satan and his legions, since they can't create, not in the traditional sense, they have to force it, which means it has certain limitations, right? It's my belief that there have been many Nephilim wars throughout time. And humanity was pushed to the point of near extinction on a number of occasions, I would bet, and especially in focal regions like North America and parts of Central and South America as well, all over the place, to be honest. Bunch of little small scale apocalypses, and they take place like what took place at the Nephilim stronghold that we now call Iceland, which I'm still working on my movie about. A very centralized apocalypse took place in Iceland that essentially scorched earthed the entire island. And if you've ever wondered why is there such an obsession with trolls and elves and giants on that island, well, so much so too, by the way, that the locals will not even test the spirits of them because they're afraid of some kind of adverse reaction. Because when the Nephilim would war, they would eat each other. And the problem is after they ran out of food because the humans couldn't keep up with feeding them, and then the Nephilim would go to war and they would start to eat each other, and after they ran out of their own kind to eat, then they would start eating the humans. First the ones that were not feeding them, but then the ones that were feeding them. And then humans began to grow scarce as well. The effects of these Nephilim wars just basically brought us to a breaking point. And on a number of occasions, it's my opinion that other forces, such as archangels on our side, under God's command, were sent in to basically remind the Nephilim and the Watchers who was really in charge here. And I think a ton of them were just smited into oblivion. I think it was easy and it was fun for these archangels to come down here and just smite these pathetic Nephilim. But anyway, some of these moments can be thought of as great resets. And you don't really notice it's happening. People live through it. There's no sudden bright light and you're in a brand new reality or anything like that. You don't even feel it. It just happens right under your nose, and a bunch of things cloud your vision in a specific moment, but you don't even know that your vision is clouded because you're too busy sniffing in your phone, or you're too busy doing whatever you're doing, just trying to survive, or, not realizing that a great reset is taking place right now. But the most famous Great Flood was, it was very easy to understand that it was happening because it was the Great Flood. Time on Earth appears to operate in cycles, right? We've been talking a little bit about that, and everything that happened back then seems to continue to happen today. The Watchers and the Nephilim, they continue to influence us today. The experiments have become increasingly successful to the point that a post-human is well within view, in my opinion, and they're closer than they've ever been to systematically, basically exterminating us, while simultaneously, it would appear, somehow absorbing us completely. It's almost like they want to take us and become us, but they need us alive. I don't know what's going on, but it's dark. It's almost like they want to create a human that doesn't need a god. That's kind of like what it feels like they're trying to do, but they need us to do that because we're the humans. But anyway, this should make you look at the massive amounts of women and children that go missing the whole world over, and think about it a little bit differently. Especially the 350,000 missing children from the border over the past 4 years. Women and children are currency to the Watchers. They always have been. Why do you think there's such a huge human trafficking problem the whole world over? You think there's just that many people buying up women and children? I think personally there's something more going on. And I know that men do get kidnapped and stuff, but it's not nearly as much. And I don't think you can just convince me that it's because men can fight. Because there's a lot of bitch-ass dudes out there these days, and they can't fight. But they're not getting kidnapped either. Nobody wants them, but people do want the women and children. It's messed up. There's a nefarious purpose for that, in my opinion. We're going to hit this topic hard later in the year. I've got a number of people tasked on this topic at this very moment. So for now, you should try to come to the understanding that not all of these missing women and children are simply due to petty sex trafficking operations. It's my belief that much of this trafficking leads, if the strings are followed meticulously and faithfully and courageously, because honestly, a lot of this stuff is kind of creepy to dig into, but it'll lead you directly to the Watchers and the Nephilim and those that would serve their agendas. These Nephilim breeding operations, just as in the ancient times, they continue today. That's what I'm trying to get at. If you guys I'll just spell it out for you. Except now it's just much more horrifying. It is done via machine and algorithm and basically coordinated farming of choice victims and kidnapping. It's directly linked to financial profit as well. It's a commercial enterprise that sacrifices the false gods, and it's linked to so many rich and famous people each and every one of us see on a daily basis. It's happening right in front of us. This is like a meat grinder of flesh and depravity, and the byproduct are the monsters that have been put down time and time again, but they just keep coming back, and soon they're going to come back again. They're going to rise again. But let me ask you this, because no, this whole rant is not for nothing. Let me ask you this. Where do you think the victims of trafficking and kidnapping who are never found end up? Where do the ones that aren't just for the workers on the way up, where do they end up? Where do the special ones go? What exactly do the elite's favorite little toys experience? Especially when the elites are composed of the most powerful narrative crafters, war starters, vaccine makers, education teaching titans, All these people, they're trying to mimic these false gods on some levels, but they're also trying to please them. They are pillars of a false religion. In many situations, these people are not the monsters themselves. They are monsters, but they're not the monster. They're merely the servants of the ones who are actually in charge. And I think personally, the leaders that we see, they answer to somebody else, and they might answer to the Dark Ones, the Watchers. I think there's at least one layer above what we see. There is a whole shadow realm that we never, ever see, and we're never, ever allowed to believe in it. And if you've heard of it, then that's not it. There's something that you just simply don't know. And I'm talking beyond the all the big like Illuminati names. I'm talking about even beyond that. Like there's a level that of human beings that you do not even know exist, that you've never known the name of. And those are the ones who talk to these Dark Ones. Those are the ones who trade the women. That's what I think. But of course, being so close to the top, these people that we do see, they no doubt experience a measure of benefit for their evils. They get paid. The enforcing of laws and narratives and directives and wars that ensure the delivery of blood and abomination to the false gods is definitely not a thankless job, right? In many ways, these pathetic specimens, they attempt to replicate the sins of their Watcher and Nephilim overseers. And this is not linear, folks. This is a population of monsters the whole world over who engage in these activities in hidden places beyond sight. So it's not just the USA, it's everywhere. Because you see, the Nephilim cannot breed amongst themselves, so they have to be continually supplied with women. Daniel 2:43 says, when he's describing the final kingdom, symbolized by the feet of iron and clay in Nebuchadnezzar's statue, he says, "And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." So some interpret this as, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, as a reference to the return of the hybrid beings like the Nephilim in the end times. It could also be a direct reference to the NPC theory. In this theory, there is a race of humanoid, non-human Nephilim that look exactly like us, but do not operate spiritually or mentally the same way that we do. And I've talked endlessly on this. The differences are felt more than they're seen, and they cannot breed. And this raises some really interesting questions, in my opinion, regarding the rapidly declining rate of babies being born in the modern age. Don't you think? Jubilees, which I'm understanding that some of you don't believe that's Bible canon. That's totally fine. I don't even know if I believe it's Bible canon. But Jubilees 10, 1 through 14 says, it discusses how the spirits of the Nephilim became demons after their physical destruction, and they continue to influence the world. It says that after the great flood cleansed the earth of wickedness, peace seemed to settle upon the world, yet hidden in the shadows, a lingering threat remained. The Nephilim, these giants born of the forbidden union between fallen angels, the Watchers, and human women, had been destroyed in the flood. But their spirits, unbound by physical death, continued to roam the earth as dark and restless entities. And these spirits, of course, were filled with bitterness and malice, and they began to torment the survivors of humanity, leading them astray, whispering lies, and sowing chaos. Noah, a righteous man who had found favor with God, observed the growing influence of these evil spirits on his children and their descendants. Their presence corrupted the hearts of men, dragging them back toward the very sins that had doomed the world before the flood. So, troubled by the suffering of his people, Noah turned to God in fervent prayer, and he begged the Almighty to intervene, to protect humanity from these demons, these malevolent forces, and to grant peace on the earth. And hearing Noah's plea, God summoned his archangels and gave them a command to bind these rebellious spirits and confine them in the depths of the earth. Most of the spirits were cast into chains, imprisoned to prevent their influence. Yet, as the judgment was about to be fulfilled, Mastema, a leader among the unclean spirits, dared to approach God with a bold request. "Lord of all," Mastema said. Might be Mastema, don't judge me. They said, "Allow some of us to remain. Let us test humanity, for in their struggle against temptation, the faithful will prove their righteousness." And God, in his wisdom, allowed a fraction of the spirits to remain under his command. He placed strict limitations on their power, ensuring that they could never overpower humanity entirely. Their role would be to test, not destroy, serving as a measure of free will and moral strength. Thus, they became agents of temptation, a thorn in humanity's side, but also a tool for divine justice and refinement. And Noah, ever faithful, received divine instructions on how to protect his descendants. God revealed to him the secrets of the earth, herbs and remedies that could counteract the influence of the spirits. And with this wisdom, Noah taught his sons how to resist the darkness and preserve the light of righteousness in their lives. And so, while the spirits of the Nephilim continued to haunt the edges of the human world, humanity was not left defenseless. The struggle between good and evil endured, of course. It's a testament to free will and the unyielding grace of God. And as they've crept the earth, these demons have become all manner of weird monsters and hybrids. Because as the Dark Ones continue to splice and experiment and encourage humans to do the same for their victory, there is no imagination broad enough to picture the horrors to come. I'm warning you now.
Describe what they look like.
I could, but it would probably take a whole lot of time. The reason I state that, when I got out in 1989, we had cataloged 57 different species. You have individuals that look very much like you and myself that could walk among us and you wouldn't even notice the difference, except for some of the things that they might be able to go ahead, even in a dark room, and touch an object and go ahead and identify what color that object might be. They would have a heightened sense of smell, sight, hearing. The situation is that you have various types of what we normally call grays. We didn't call them grays in the military, but you had at least 3 types of the grays. You had some that were much taller than we were. The unique thing that I'd like to point out for the most part is that the entities that we did catalog were in fact humanoid. Now this created a situation where the scientific community was trying to figure out why that would be the case, because you would expect that if life evolved on other planets that they would take on some type of other being, so to speak, not necessarily look humanoid or be bipedal such as we are.
I'm warning you now, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And many of you have seen these beings and the byproducts of these beings, and all of you have experienced the NPC, even if you don't know it. You're not separated from these things I'm talking about. You live among them. You just live in this carefully curated little garden just for you. Garden with high hedges, and they all look climbable, but they're not. And it's a beautiful garden, but it is accompanied by the blissful betrayal of ignorance. That's just the sad state of things. That's how it is right now. Until someone escapes.
Protagonizando este escándalo en plena vía pública. Adelante.
Some of the words that were translated, and I had to scour the web for this, but some of the words that were translated that she was saying, this Gabriela Rico Jimenez, that's why they killed the Queen of Scotland, the Queen of England. Then she mentioned something about the Princess of Disneyland. They killed a lot of people. They ate humans. That's disgusting. I didn't know anything about this. I mean, I didn't know what was there, but they ate humans. They smell like human flesh. No, where are you taking me? I'm not going anywhere until everything gets clarified. You were the ones that kept me there. You were the ones there to retrieve a copy. So this is the sad reality of this young woman. Then I think I heard the girl say, "This is not the end of things." Yeah, that's pretty creepy. Gabriela Rico Jimenez, a 21-year-old Mexican model, vanished in 2009 after making bold and shocking accusations against some of the world's most powerful figures. Her disappearance remains one of the most perplexing, unsolved cases of the last 2 decades, stirring conspiracy theories and intense public speculation. Before her disappearance, she publicly accused prominent elites, including billionaire Carlos Slim and even Queen Elizabeth, of participating in ritual murders and acts of cannibalism. Her claims were explosive, delivered in a highly emotional state, and were captured on video outside the upscale Fiesta Inn Hotel in Monterrey, Mexico. The footage quickly went viral, drawing widespread attention and fueling speculation about her allegations. She somehow managed to escape her captors and get in front of a camera, where she just promptly appeared to report Nephilim and Nephilim-adjacent behavior amongst the billionaire class. Cannibalism is perhaps one of the inventions of the Nephilim, in my opinion. This is a new thing that I've been thinking about. And it's one of their main sources of sustenance, according to ancient texts, so kind of checks out. On August 4th, 2009, Jimenez was seen outside the hotel acting erratically, her behavior described as frantic and distressed. Authorities arrived and detained her, ostensibly for her own safety. But by the following day, she had vanished without a trace. She was never seen again. Her sudden disappearance sparked outrage and curiosity, with many questioning how someone in police custody could simply disappear. Yeah, how does that happen, I wonder? Especially when they're shouting about stuff that they shouldn't be shouting about, right? If she was crazy, would they have needed to disappear her without a trace? And some people do say that she is in a mental institution and that she's in such a state that she will never be removed from the mental institution. But that, to me, doesn't discredit her. If you saw people, Nephilim and Nephilim-adjacent people, cannibalizing some people, yeah, you might end up in a mental institution too, man. I don't know. Others argue that her behavior outside the Fiesta Inn suggests that she may have been struggling with mental health issues. Of course, because anytime that somebody says something crazy, they must be having some mental health issues, right? They couldn't possibly be telling the truth. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and it wasn't until I started thinking about it in the vein of Nephilim activity that I thought, that kind of makes sense. And there's a lot of rumors of cannibalism and stuff in those elite ranks of Hollywood and the government and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of rumors of that kind of stuff. That's nothing new. I've gotten banned for talking about it before. I'm not trying to go there again, but there's going to be a lot of stuff on Rumble this year. Don't you worry. But let's get back to the story. That was the last time that anybody saw her. So was she silenced? Had she seen something? I don't know about you, but that footage gives me a very I'm not supposed to be seeing this kind of vibe. And her behavior compels me to ask some tough questions. And I know that some of you might be saying, well, that doesn't point to Nephilim. How is this helping us find the Nephilim? I bet there are a few of you that are also just kind of ticked off that I'm not zeroing in on a cave somewhere or Google Earth or something, right? But it's not always going to be like that. Sure, there are Nephilim in the hidden caves of the mountain, and they will feast on your squad mates. And there's Nephilim in the farthest reaches of the deepest of forests, and they will cause you to vanish without a trace. You can be climbing Capitol Peak in Colorado and experience the demonic forces at the top, where they will tell you to throw yourself off. And that voice will probably sound like 1,000 whispers or some kind of insane sound. They're in the gas station, leaning on the ATM, waiting for you to react to the poor in some way, or get in a fight, call somebody a name. And they're not saying anything. They're just watching. They're in your bedroom. They're watching what you do on your phone. They're watching you take a dump. They're everywhere. And I got a lot of flack for saying that kind of stuff in my last video. People saw it as a cop-out statement to say that they're hidden in plain sight. Sorry that that's the answer and you don't want to accept it. That's just what I think, you know? And they are in the positions of power that we elect, not directly, but by association. The company they keep desires their power of superhuman abilities and knowledge. And the evil ones desire, in turn, power over the people. So these monsters are not just in the woods and the caves. They are there, yes, in those places, and some are invisible, yes, but they are also sitting shapeshifters on the thrones. So when a woman who has been to the top screams of cannibalism and ruthless bloodlust, will you just turn your eyes away? Let's take a look at another example of possible Nephilim interference in human lives so we can accurately try to place where exactly their influence reaches the point of impact.
And it describes creating a worldwide subculture and cult around alien abductions using stagecraft, I'm quoting, and using advanced aerospace devices, i.e. man-made UFOs, anti-gravities, with creatures that could pass as aliens to engage in events to scare people so that the public could be turned to believe that there's one or more civilizations that we should unite against and fight. And Ronald Reagan at the United Nations literally said, wouldn't our job of creating a unified world be easier if we had a common alien threat?
What do you guys think of the curious case of Eliza Lamb? This one, you guys remember that it went so viral for being absolutely unexplainable that Netflix created a documentary essentially saying that she was so mentally sick that she simply did this to herself. Again, this is troubling. She goes into this elevator and immediately starts acting kind of erratically, like she's being, also scared, like she's being followed. She's looking around the corner, she's looking behind her, she's trying to get this elevator to move. It's not moving. Everything is clearly horrifying in her world right now. And after this, she's just gone. She would later be found in the hotel's water supply. The same supply that guests were drinking and bathing in. This was at the Cecil Hotel, by the way. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. The Cecil Hotel, where a lot of other crazy stuff has happened, and we'll get into that a little bit. But do you see where I'm going with this? This is a trick. It's magic. I would not be surprised if there was some kind of Nephilim magic involved in this in some way. Or this was a host nearly abducted who chose death instead. And also, I hope you are beginning to classify certain mental diseases as demonic influence by now. The health machine has desperately and nearly successfully completely reclassified demonic control as something that can be solved with medicine. So maybe you see where this is going as well. Medicated hosts. You're fine with a pill. Now get back out there, champ. Attaboy. With a monkey on their back and a prescription in their mouth, you can just walk right off and you're invincible. And with that monkey in your back, you could also be used as a sign of some sort, a trigger, a televised message that very few can interpret, and not the good few. All those people who are out there trying to crack all the codes that the Illuminati got and that kind of stuff, that's what I'm talking about. In the case of Miss Lamb, there's a couple very odd details about it. There's this aspect of Dark Water. Dark Water is a 2002 Japanese horror film that was adapted into a 2005 American version starring Jennifer Connelly. In both movies, a mother named Dahlia, the Black Dahlia was found murdered near the Cecil Hotel, by the way, and daughter named Cecilia, which sounds eerily similar to Cecil Hotel, moved into a new apartment where discolored water starts coming out of the faucets. The weird water and spooky elevator eventually led them to discovering a dead body in the apartment's water supply. If you boil down the movie to its most basic elements, you literally get the story of Eliza Lamb. Lamb was found in the Cecil Hotel's water tank about a week after the LAPD posted a video of her acting strangely in the elevator, and before her body was found, guests complained about the low water pressure and strange tasting and discolored water. It was almost like life imitated art, and people legitimately wondered if someone or some higher power was deliberately playing out the movie's plot. And who's to say no? There's also this one, which just creeps me out. The Lamb-Eliza test for tuberculosis. After Lamb died, a tuberculosis outbreak plagued LA, especially among the homeless community in Skid Row by the Cecil Hotel. And the test for the tuberculosis was literally her name, but backwards. Lamb-Eliza, which stood for this big, long word that I'm not going to try to say, and then a bunch of other big, long words that combine to be what this test actually is. What it's actually called, the scientific name. I don't know or care. But conspiracy theorists, of course, immediately speculated that Lamb was effectively a biological weapon of sorts, basically. They discovered that she was a student from the University of British Columbia, which has a reputable tuberculosis research center. And this particular theory has disturbing eugenic undertones that posits Lamb was sent to control the homeless population. According to this theory, Lamb died because she either knew too much or planned to expose whoever sent her. But according to her autopsy report, Lamb did not exhibit any signs of tuberculosis. The things that, I don't know, man, there's just so many weird coincidences. Like, why would it be called that? Why would it be called that? What are the odds of that? The last place where anyone saw Lamb was, eerily enough, Los Angeles' The Last Bookstore. That's literally what it's called. But this name wasn't the only strange coincidence, because if you look up The Last Bookstore's domain, you'll find a postal code and its registration information, which is V5G4S2. Online sleuths put that postal code into Google Maps and found the pinpoint at Lamb's burial spot, which is Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Canada. You cannot make this stuff up, bro. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Also, moving on a little bit, don't forget the not discussed enough topic of Project Monarch. Ron Patton writes this, all stems from Nazi mind control research and projects. This Project Monarch. Amidst the subtle, cerebral circumvention of the gullible populace through a multitude of manipulated mediums lies one of the most diabolical atrocities perpetrated upon a segment of the human race. It's a form of systematic mind control which has permeated every aspect of society for almost 50 years at this point. To objectively ascertain the following, one may need to re-examine preconceived ideologies relating to the dualistic nature of mankind. And if that's not a warning, I don't know what is. This stuff is about to get messed up. Resolving the philosophical question of whether we are inherently good or inherently evil is tantamount in shaping our perception of reality. specifically the spiritual variable within the equation of life. This exposition is substantiated by declassified U.S. government documents, individuals formerly connected to the U.S. intelligence communities, historical writings, researchers knowledgeable in mind control, publications from mental health practitioners, and interviews taken from survivors unwittingly subjected to a highly complex form of trauma-based mind control known as Monarch programming. A word of caution for survivors of intensely systematic mind control and or some form of ritualized abuse. There are numerous triggers in this article. It is therefore recommended not to listen to what I'm about to say unless appropriate support systems are in place or if you have a thoroughly reintegrated personality. The mystery of religions of ancient Egypt and Greece and India and Babylon helped lay the foundation for occultism, meaning hidden knowledge. One of the earliest writings giving reference to occultism is the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I have a copy on my bookshelf. It is one of the strangest books that I own. It's essentially a compilation of rituals explicitly for describing methods of torture and intimidation to create trauma, the use of potions and drugs and casting of spells, hypnotism, ultimately resulting in the total enslavement of the initiate. These have been the main ingredients for a part of occultism known as Satanism throughout the ages. During the 13th century, the Roman Catholic Church increased and solidified its dominion throughout Europe with the infamous Inquisition. Catholics hate it when I talk about their religion. Your religion sucks. Like, sorry. You brought everything that you have to your feet through blood. Like, you guys are infiltrated by Satan. And so much of Christianity is. But I'm definitely going to call out the Catholics because they're always the loudest ones who want to come and be like, there's no witchcraft in our religion. Your religion is witchcraft, dude. Satanism survived this period of persecution, deeply entrenching itself under the veil of various esoteric groups. In 1776, a Bavarian Jesuit by the name of Adam Weishaupt was commissioned by the House of Rothschild to centralize the power base of the mystery religions into what is commonly known as the Illuminati, meaning the Enlightened Ones. This was an amalgamation of powerful occultic bloodlines, elite secret societies, and influential Masonic fraternities with the desire to construct the framework for a new world order. The outward goal of this utopia was to bring forth universal happiness to the human race. However, their underlying intention was to gradually increase control over the masses, thus becoming masters of the planet. You know, plan B. So, in other words, we are the farm. It's kind of funny how so many different conspiracy theories and religions ultimately seem to kind of end up at the same exact point of convergence. We are a populace being farmed or manipulated for one reason or another by a superior race or being. As a human, it's also very fascinating to me that we are instilled with the notion that there is a way to fight back. After all, if we were simply code, how could we really escape the black box? But Patton goes on, the name monarch is not necessarily defined within the context of royal nobility, but rather refers to the monarch butterfly. When a person is undergoing trauma induced by electroshock, a feeling of lightheadedness is evidenced, as if one is floating or fluttering like a butterfly. There is also a symbolic representation pertaining to the transformation or metamorphosis of this beautiful insect, from a caterpillar to a cocoon to a butterfly, which will return to its point of origin. Such is the migratory pattern that makes this species unique. Some ancient mystic groups, such as the Gnostics saw the butterfly as a symbol of corrupt flesh. The angel of death in Gnostic artworks was portrayed crushing the butterfly. A marionette is a puppet that is attached to strings and is controlled by the puppet master. Hence, monarch programming is also referred to as the marionette syndrome. Imperial conditioning is another term used, by the way, while some mental health therapists know it as conditioned stimulus response sequences. Project Monarch could be best described as a form of structured dissociation and occultic integration in order to compartmentalize the mind into multiple personalities within a systematic framework. And during this process, a satanic ritual, usually including Kabbalistic mysticism, is performed with the purpose of attaching a particular demon or group of demons to the corresponding altars, i.e. the person. The person is the altar. Of course, most skeptics would view this as simply a means to enhance trauma within the victim, negating any irrational belief that demonic possession actually occurs. But alas, that's how they get you, folks. I bet you didn't think when you clicked on this video about Nephilim that you were going to find yourself aware that you may be a victim of Project Monarch. But baby, this has gone global because it works. The Nephilim witchworks, like we said, they're a spider web. They're cut from the anchors and laid upon the eye. It's a curse. It's a dark force, a dark magic. It's the best way to describe it, and it just covers everything. Let's look at something else. Now that you can maybe begin to understand why I say the Nephilim are hiding partially in plain sight. And in fact, it's even darker than you think. To find the Nephilim, you can wander around in the woods if you want. We've already been over. Yep, there's probably some out there.
Just months ago, dozens of East Texans reported extraordinary encounters in Erath County, seeing lights in the sky and flying objects near Stephenville in Dublin, Texas.
Now, we are not here to say those things happened or didn't happen, but for many, there is still a lot that is unexplained about all this.
We hear this snapping of branches and crash, boom. All of a sudden we hear woo, and as that ship took off, it snapped off all these branches in the woods. And I went back into the house.
She says the aliens never came inside the house that night, but were observing them.
Or you can more effectively just follow the trail of dead bodies, because cannibalism, like we said before, I'm pretty sure is a Nephilim invention. But before humanity was driven mad by their influence and infliction, we didn't really do that. We didn't eat each other. So to find the Nephilim, we must also look for cannibalism. And where will you find it? I've written a book on cannibalism. Maybe I'll throw it up for sale someday. But first, you'll find it amongst many tribes of many different ancient lands. But right now, I want to focus on South America. It's my belief that many people fled from the oppressive and overwhelming rule of the giants and the Nephilim in their earlier generations. They fled north, and some of those who for a time were more willing to assist their demigod overlords, they formed these kingdoms such as the Maya and the Aztec, who tell the tale of copper-blooded women. We mentioned them before, and their sole purpose was to give and be given to the Watchers and Giants. And then they continued up through what is now Panama, though, and Mexico, and into what is now the United States. And they formed the Anasazi people, who were also cannibalized to death. A great many of them were. There's evidence of this because the Nephilim chased them. And not only this, but the tribes found that giants were already here as well. There are historical accounts of basically three kind of tribes that were here: a red-haired tribe of giants, a black-haired tribe of giants, and this sort of rebel group that just did whatever they wanted, but mainly appeared to have black hair as well. And they plagued the land. It was a horrible nightmare time to be alive. Similarly, it's getting that way for children in the world today.
At a pharmaceutical company. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just believe in research and science.
In this database, you came across a chain of emails discussing fetal tissue and the COVID vaccine. Vanessa Gelman, who works in Washington, D.C., is Senior Director of Worldwide Research. The question came up as an inquiry to our MedInfo group. They're asking, quote, did Pfizer make use of a cell line from an fetus?
They want you to leave out the highlighted part, which is the one or more cell lines with an origin that can be traced back to human tissue has been used in laboratory tests associated with the vaccine program.
Now, I know how that sounds. It's like I'm an anti-vaxxer, but keep in mind, please, I'm ex-military. I have vaccines you've never heard of. It's why I'm so messed up. It worked. One more thread to follow to the Nephilim magics. And indeed, watcher technology that hinges on dead humans. Interestingly, this is a concept that exists prior to religious advent. Let's look at Japan, for instance, as they are home to one of the most popularized demons of all time, the Oni. I myself have worn the Oni patch of war on my chest. But the Oni were not just demons, they were giants, and they existed before the religion that is allegedly credited with their invention. Very interesting. They wanted them to return. These ancient men were not always aware of what they invited into their lives because they were blinded by the power and awesomeness and the blessings bestowed upon them for worshiping these, well, gods. And who wouldn't worship? There was no Yahweh here. They hadn't heard of such a creator God as he. So why wouldn't they worship the imposters? It's a slippery slope. Inadvertently, these people and millions of others assisted the Dark Ones on their mission, setting in motion a precedent for human advancement, watcher worship, and Nephilim magics. By doing this, they ensured that their children may bask in glory. Listen, I've only scratched the surface of what I could tell you, what I found. Much of it is very hard to digest with research pulled from banned sources and places that are new to me that I've been exploring recently. My goal was to cast some light for the naysayers who misunderstood what I mean when I say the Nephilim are before our very eyes. Of course they want you to think they're only in distant caves in far-off lands. But wake up. Everything is connected. Listen, guys, invite your kids to like the show because we need to get some of the younger folks on this podcast. Not that I don't love all of you, but most of you guys are a little bit older than me, and I would like to get some people my age here and some of the younger ones too. So if you got a kid or you know a kid, just invite that kid to my show. And I'm going to start doing some lighter topics. All this Nephilim stuff really kind of got to me this week, so we're going to do some Hollow Earth stuff next, and I can't wait to talk to you about it because I have found some crazy stuff. So don't forget to like, follow, share, don't drink the water, question everything. Later.